Karen prided herself on being the self-appointed queen and judge of the neighborhood. So, when the new neighbor in a red MAGA hat dared to park by her fence, she did what she thought was only fair: dumped a bucket of rotten garbage on him. But when a black motorcade pulled up in front of her house the next day, and the banner at the entrance read, "Welcome, Governor," it became clear her reign was about to take a very dramatic turn. What happens next? Let's just say, it's not for the faint-hearted. It was 7:45 a.m., and the quiet suburban neighborhood was about to be anything but peaceful. Karen Lawson, 52, stood by her window, gripping a ceramic mug emblazoned with "Live, Laugh, Complain." Her hawk-like eyes locked onto the new neighbor across the street, a man unloading boxes from his truck. He wasn't just a man, though. He was a man in a MAGA hat. To Karen, this was practically a declaration of war. "Just what we needed," Karen muttered, her voice dripping with disdain. Another backward redneck ruining the neighborhood. The man was in his early 40s, with rugged features and an air of quiet confidence. He carried himself with a composure that only fueled Karen's irritation. When he set one of his boxes down too close to her pristine lawn, Karen decided she'd had enough. Without a second thought, she grabbed the nearest bucket. It was full of last night's leftovers, coffee grounds, and the faint but unmistakable stench of rotten eggs. She marched outside, her slippered feet slapping against the driveway. "Hey! Get your junk off my property!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the morning air like a rusty knife. The man turned, raising an eyebrow. But before he could reply, Karen hurled the contents of the bucket in his direction. A rain of garbage splattered across his shirt, his neatly pressed jeans, and worst of all, his MAGA hat. For a moment he froze, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he wiped his face with a handkerchief, his eyes meeting Karen's with unnerving calm. Karen smirked, triumphant. To her, this was a victory. Little did she know the battle had just begun. By noon, the entire neighborhood knew about the incident. Ted, the gossipy neighbor who lived 2 houses down, had recorded the whole thing on his phone and uploaded it to Facebook with the caption, "Karen strikes again. Pray for the new guy." Karen basked in the attention. "Someone had to stand up for this community," she said to a gathering of neighbors. "If we let people like him move in, what's next? Confederate flags? Barbecues at midnight?" The group nodded hesitantly, though a few exchanged uncomfortable glances. Ted, ever the devil's advocate, muttered under his breath, "You might have gone too far this time, Karen." Meanwhile, across the street, the man in the MAGA hat, still unnamed to Karen and the rest, continued unloading boxes as if nothing had happened. By evening, he appeared on his front porch wearing a crisp suit and holding a cup of coffee. His calm demeanor infuriated Karen even more. "What kind of person just takes that without fighting back?" she hissed to her friend over the phone. The next day, Karen woke to find a package on her doorstep. Inside was her bucket, scrubbed clean, polished, and wrapped in clear plastic. A handwritten note read, "Thought you might want this back. Let's keep things neighborly." Karen stared at the note, her stomach twisting with unease. There was something about his tone, too polite, too measured, that unsettled her. The morning after the note, Karen was jolted awake by the roar of construction trucks. She rushed outside to find workers erecting a massive banner across the entrance to the neighborhood. The words on it read, "Welcome home, Governor James Randolph." Her heart dropped. Fingers trembling, Karen pulled out her phone and Googled the name. Her face went pale as she realized that the man she had doused in garbage was not just a neighbor. He was the newly elected governor of the state. The rumble of an approaching motorcade snapped her out of her stupor. Black SUVs lined the street as a group of officials emerged, flanking none other than James Randolph himself. He still wore the infamous MAGA hat, his expression calm but with a flicker of something darker beneath the surface. He approached Karen's house, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. Karen stood frozen in the doorway, clutching her robe like a shield. "Good morning, Mrs. Lawson," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "I believe we have some things to discuss." Karen tried to stammer out an apology, but no words came. As Randolph's gaze bore into her, she realized this was not just a man she could intimidate or dismiss. This was someone who played a much bigger game, and she had just become a pawn.